Hi and welcome to BIA E-News. Today we catch up with Angus Mitchell, General Manager of Marine Safety Queensland, and also Andrew Fielding, who's the Chair of the BIA State Council in Queensland. Welcome to both of you. We've been on a pretty bumpy course over the last couple of months, but now we're on the road to recovery, the course towards recovery from COVID-19. How would you describe the impact on recreational boating in your state? And perhaps, Andrew, you could kick things off.
Thanks, Neil. Certainly, I think as everybody experienced, or we did all experience in the beginning of COVID, the restrictions that came in place affected everything that we wanted to do, and boating was swept up into that, bar the need for people to do essential services or the ability to go fishing for food. So it had a dramatic effect as it did with every industry, and I think it, if anything, it gave recreational boaters an opportunity to go out and buy some goods and make some improvements to their boats from what we've seen in the market. But it certainly did have a dramatic effect, and people were patiently waiting, and it was great to see that they were totally understanding that it wasn't the time to be breaking the rules and going out and putting more pressure on essential services that may have been needed in other areas at that time. So when the easing of restrictions came in, it was great to see people back out there and certainly behaving. There has been, from our perspective, a lot of people out there enjoying the water now, and it's a fantastic time to do that.
And Angus, what about from the regulator point of view?
Yeah, look, I think Andrew touched on it. I think people were restricted across the whole gambit of what they wanted to do, and normal movements, etc., and a lot of social and recreational things that they would have perhaps done that they couldn't do. But we did see a lot of boating still occur, which was great. I guess as a regulator, we wanted to make sure that particularly the high impact areas, things like fueling and boat ramps, etc., that we were taking pressure off them, and that there wasn't increasing risk of a spread of infection. But equally, that we also had obligations to try and look after people like marine rescue, etc., and our volunteer agencies, that they weren't being called on, particularly to travel great distances. They were under staffing issues as well. So we did see, by and large, throughout the state, people being able to get on the water, but keeping it in family groups or in groups of two, and whether that would be for fishing, as Andrew said, but equally to get out and enjoy some time on the water. And it was one of those very few things that people could do, particularly during those very early, essentially lockdown stages where there was so much other movement couldn't occur. It was good to see that this could, and that has obviously opened up. We went to then 50 nautical miles, 50 kilometres, sorry. Then we went to 150 kilometres. Now we're at overnight stays. So look, it has been a gradual release, but I must say that what we have seen as a regulator has been very encouraging, and it's by and large boaties doing the right thing. Some pockets of issues that we've had to deal with, but across the state, considering how many people own boats, how many people have licences, very small amount of challenges that we had to deal with.
Oh, that's good news. And it's a similar story that we've got from many of the other states and territories about the behaviour, which is really encouraging. Andrew, what would you describe the state of the boating industry in Queensland right now?
It's actually surprisingly, from what I hear from my colleagues, very good. The level of participation is high. Certainly what I see in southeast Queensland with the amount of people that are back utilising boat ramps and local infrastructure that's related to boating. The people are back out there really having a great time. And if you read what's in the paper recently about boat sales, particularly in that trailer boat market, there's been a big influx in people returning to the market. But certainly from my perspective in selling boats, we're finding that people that maybe got out of boating to do more overseas travel are returning to boating, because it looks as though the overseas side of things is off the cards still for quite some time. So I think people are really embracing the fact that this is the perfect opportunity to get back out and see what's in our own backyard and experience the great things that are out there, not just boating wise. There's lots of amazing tourism opportunities, but certainly for our industry and boating, there's signs of it being very positive for the future from this point on.
Yeah, look, it's certainly some encouraging signs, and that story about the the sales pressure is some businesses actually don't have enough stock to meet the demand. But what's really interesting, and it kind of leads into the next question for Angus, not only you've got the existing boaters getting back into it, and the people, lapsed boaters getting back into it, but there's a very strong indicator of people who are new entry. So people who don't have perhaps a strong boating background, getting into boating, perhaps for the first time, seems to be quite a strong, significant number, which I guess puts a little bit of pressure on the regulator. But that's something that the industry clearly wants to collaborate with the regulator on, and making sure that people are coming in, those new entry people, know what they're doing, know the safe behaviours and so on. So Angus, with that kind of setting, what are the priorities for Marine Safety Queensland for, say, the next 12 months?
Look, you're right. I guess we are about encouraging people getting on the water, and that's why the primary aim of my agency is to make sure people can that there's accessibility, so that we are building the right boat ramps and car parks and pontoons in the right area. And a lot of that work has continued unabated throughout this period. But equally, to make sure that the licensing scheme that we have in place here is top notch, that the people who are getting into it, and as you said, particularly those who are coming in new or inexperienced, are given a really high quality training, and that they're safe when they get out in the waterway. We all want to see really safe waterways. We want to make sure that they're accessible. We want to make sure that people from a whole range of different boating, whether it's passive or active, whether it's fishing, whether it's competing in rowing, whatever it may be, that they all have a right to be on our waterways, and they can all do so safely. So we're certainly doing a lot of work with the licensed providers. Look, they've had to shut down by and large for a lot of this period because of social distancing and just really the reality of having a number of people on a confined area like a boat. But that's opening up, and there's certainly many of them are starting to get back. Some of them were able to continue on in that e-learning over the period, but we do hope to see a big increase going forward in boat licenses, but equally around the industry too. We've done a lot of work around the Australian builder's plate. So what we want to see there is that the highest quality of boats being built in Queensland. Around 80% of boats in the Australian market are built here in Queensland. We want to make sure that they are known for quality and the very highest, adherence to safety and national standards. So that's going to be important as we move forward also.
Yeah, look, Angus, I know there was some good news just recently, with the COAG signing off on the Builders Plate program to reset it. And it's all about safe vessels and market confidence, and that's a good thing. And the industry's a complete committed partner in that journey. But you also mentioned maritime infrastructure, boat ramps and so on. With the exit from COVID-19 and, for example, governments like Queensland putting stimulus funding into infrastructure, the BIA, the boating industry, is certainly pushing where we can to see boating infrastructure given an additional push in that regard, not the least of it being the creation of jobs, the classic combination growth and jobs, but it's also fundamental to the boating sector. So it's good to hear that MSQ's also pushing on its side in terms of maritime infrastructure, and it'd be good to think that the commercial lease issue in marinas might get some resolution too over the next 12 months in a stage of renewal, because I know you're resetting MSQ as a business unit to make it more of a total systems approach. Can I ask you how you're going with your reset at MSQ?
Yeah, you're right. Look, the beauty about MSQ in Queensland is we do have a big impact across the network. So the one state agency looks after, I've got harbour masters in 5 regions that cover all of the 21 ports. Equally, as you know, there are boat harbours dotted throughout the state, which were initially set up as sort of a day's sailing from each other. But we also do have an influence, as we just mentioned, on boat building in terms of licence plates, but also around licensing. I think what we do need to do is work very closely, as we are doing with industries like the BIA, to make sure that, one, we are growing the experience of boating, we're providing more opportunities. Sometimes that's around accessibility, having enough infrastructure in place to allow people to get on the water. But two, it's making sure that industry itself is really sustainable. It is in our interest to make sure that boat license providers are a sustainable business and that they are profiting from it, because ultimately that's what keeps people into boating if they're getting a good product. Equally, when it comes to actually purchasing boats, if they're getting a good experience, if the boat's being built in Queensland of the highest quality throughout throughout Australia, well then that industry develops and that's more jobs. So for us, it is around making sure people are safe, but equally promoting boating in Queensland, whether it be for interstate boaters to come here or for Queenslanders to get involved. We are, I think, in terms of where we're situated, our climate, the waters we've got, there is no better place in the world than to be boating in Queensland. And my job is to make sure that that's at the forefront, and whatever I can, particularly around working with industry, is only going to increase that. And that's certainly, just as a business model for me, I need more people with licenses, more people buying boats. It then puts more money back into my agency, which means I can deliver more also.
Oh, look, Angus, that's a nice segue into the next question, which is around, with the momentum we're getting across events, and the issues around restrictions on gathering being eased, and you look at what's happening in football codes, the opportunity for events to return is growing. What are your thoughts on seeing a Brisbane Boat Show, for example, running in 2021?
Well, I think it's inevitable, which is a great thing at this point in time. It provided we continue to do what we've been doing socially, and I think everybody's getting used to the fact that social distancing is here for the long-term, unforeseeable future. That and now that we're seeing the relaxing of restrictions, and as you said, with people being able to return to sporting events, that the ability for us to have a Brisbane Boat Show next year is certainly very likely. We have the advantage in what we do with our boat shows that we can space people out, and when it comes to viewing a boat at a boat show, it's actually better for our members if we can have less people gathering in one small space at a time, so they can actually display their product properly to people. So I think the boat show next year is certainly going to happen. People are wanting to buy product. That's obvious with the state of the market at this point in time. We have some great new products coming in line or online from our local dealers and our local Queensland manufacturers. So it's important that we give people choice in the future and we enable them to get back out there and enjoy, as Angus said, the amazing lifestyle that we have here in Queensland. So for a boat show next year, I think that it's a definite, and the BIA will certainly be able to handle any social distancing restrictions that are still in place at that point in time.
And Angus, what do you reckon about the Brisbane Boat Show next year? What do you think? What's your feeling?
I certainly hope that's the case. And look, we are seeing it. We're seeing it in sport, as you mentioned, in the NRL, etc. So there's a lot of time and a lot of water to go under the bridge. But it will be up to individual, businesses, and Andrew said it, around coming up with really robust plans to make sure that we are in quite a unique situation around COVID at the moment, and that's going to be with us for some time. But that doesn't mean that we can't work towards getting back to normality, and particularly something like the boat show. It's a really important selling point, not just for the industry, but equally for boating throughout Queensland. So anything we can do to assist in that, then we stand to benefit from that as well, and we'll be doing what we can to make sure that the right protocols are in place, and that we can start returning to some of those really big events as things open up and as the health situation allows us to. So, but no, we're certainly very supportive and working collaboratively to make sure that there's positive outcomes at the end of this. Yeah,
look, I think the way it's going, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an opportunity even towards the back of the end of this year, maybe, for some sort of lower level, lower scale events, the way it's looking. But as you say, Angus, time will tell. It's a moving feast and changing weekly, and in fact daily. So, but it's certainly, those events are a great opportunity to get the safety message to those new entry people. That's one of the key parts of it. To both of you.
And if I could just add one thing also, it's important, I think, that, and the government realises that we need to, everybody's wanting to return to some sort of normal life, and to be able to put on events such as this, which gives people something to look forward to and to be able to participate in. And for businesses, particularly in our industry, that see boat shows as a very positive part of their annual calendar, to be able to get the product out into the marketplace. I think that we have to do everything we can to be able to put not just boat shows on, but events on for people. It's part of our social fabric. It's what people look forward to. Different events. It's given us an opportunity to think about how we can do those things better in the future. So I think working with industry and working with government, everybody's on the same page. They all want this sort of thing to return. And it's important for the economy and for just our way of life. So I think that we all need to continue to be positive about it and look forward to what's ahead.
Yeah, look, in terms of lifestyle stuff, boating's a way of life for a lot of Australians, millions. What do you think the future holds for recreational light commercial boating in Queensland over, say, the next 2 to 3 years? Perhaps Angus.
Look, I think boating will always be very much a fundamental part of the Queensland psyche. We do have one of the highest boat ownerships in the country and licence holders in the country. Equally, around our coastline, we have an enormous coastline that sees hundreds and hundreds of thousands of trips every year. So we need to make sure that we are building infrastructure for the future, that we have systems in place to keep people safe as well. But to make sure that we can facilitate what it is the community wants. And the community wants more boat storage. The community wants more opportunities to get out on the water. If one thing that we've seen during this COVID period is one around people, how much people value their recreation, and boating is such a big part of that, but equally just around local and domestic manufacture as well. I think one of the things that we've seen here is we do want to have a strong domestic manufacturing industry, and Southeast Queensland in particular is right for that. We do have the right environment, we have the right skill sets to continue to manufacture some of the best recreational boats in the world, and our agencies like mine have a responsibility to try and assist where we can, and to make sure the government is part of the solution here in encouraging it. And so I do see that as being a very important focus for me as we move forward, and particularly as we come out of this, as you mentioned, this recovery stage of COVID, back to normality, which will take some time, but it's certainly having an opportunity to talk around, particularly with industries like yours, is exactly what I should be doing.
That sounds good. And look, finally, to each of you, this is all about boating. A question I'm putting to people each week. What got you into boating in the first place? What brought you here? Perhaps Andrew.
Well, I really had no choice, because my family were well and truly ensconced in the boating business before I came along. So we always, my parents were always building a boat. They just had to pay the school fees, but they were always building a boat when we were kids, and I was always on the floor of their retail chandlery store. So for me, boating has always been right there in the forefront of everything that we do. And I have to admit, through probably my late teens, I was sort of looking for something different. But then now, being a father myself and having 3 kids who have pretty much experienced the same carbon copy lifestyle of boating of what I've had, it's an amazing opportunity for kids growing up, and I'm very fortunate to have had what I've had, and I think having done it here in Southeast Queensland, where we can boat all year long, winter is some of the best weather that we have for boating is in winter time. So yeah, for me it was from day one. From I think probably my first outing was in some wooden boat somewhere on the Broadwater.
Yeah, no, it's good. And Angus?
Oh, look, I think by mistake a little bit. When I finished university, I was finished as a teacher with education, realised that probably wasn't the best career path for me. I joined the Navy because it looked like it was going to be fun and a lot of international travel, and it really grew from there. So I did almost 20 years in the Navy in a whole variety of roles, many years at sea, and then really got to really enjoy and really love being on the water. And it wasn't until probably after a stint as a deputy harbour master in Sydney that I moved into more into the recreational space when I was at New South Wales Maritime, and now in this role. So it started from big ship background, but now very much, you know, I choose to live here in Brisbane on the river. I love looking out at the water. I like being able to get out, going for a paddle, or getting on a boat. And I look forward to being able to do more of it, particularly as we come into what is, you know, opening up of some of those restrictions, and to enjoy our waterways. I mean, one of the reasons I moved up to Queensland was because of the beautiful weather and because of the beautiful waterways. And I haven't been disappointed so far.
No, it's a beautiful part of the world, no doubt. Look, with that, I think we'll call that a wrap. Thank you so much to both of you, and stay COVID safe, everyone.